We're talking about COVID-19 stimulus payments again. And today's question revolves around who gets the stimulus check if you and your spouse are divorced and you have children and you share custody of the children. Maybe you each claim the children as your dependent every other year, or maybe you have full custody of the children and you claim the children as your dependent the whole time, or your spouse, even though they do not have any custody of the children, you've given them the right to claim the children as a dependent on their taxes. And so, boy, this can get really confusing and messed up. Who gets the stimulus check? We're going to answer that question today in this video. So, hi, my name is Steve Hunt. I'm a certified public accountant, and I'm the consultant for prosperity and adventure. And I partner closely with business owners and other individuals to help them achieve their personal goals for more freedom, more wealth, and more adventure. I'm also the owner of College Tax Refunds, which is where we help recent college students and their parents and families claim thousands of dollars that they don't even realize that they missed on their old taxes. So if you or a family member is a recent college student, please check out collegetaxrefunds.com to see if you missed any money. Again, today the question is, who gets the stimulus check? This one that's coming out now, who gets the one that came out several months ago, if you and your spouse are divorced and you share custody of the children and one of you maybe claims the children as a dependent on the taxes and so on and so forth. And this question was actually submitted by a subscriber. So we'll go ahead and read that question from Choose the Right Health. And they ask, can I ask a question for you to answer in another video? I think I know the answer, but maybe a video needs to be made because I don't think I'm the only one with this issue. That's probably true. If you have primary custody of your children, but your ex gets to claim them on their taxes because that's how the arrangement was set up, then is there any recourse when your ex gets the stimulus checks, which I assume would be the case? The money is supposed to be to offset the costs of the kids, right? So shouldn't it at least be split, if not given to the one who has the kids? Thanks. And by the way, great videos. Thanks for making them. Well, thank you, Choose the Right Health, for being a subscriber. And yeah, so basically you're right that the money goes to the one who claims the children as a dependent. That's because the IRS doesn't know who else to send the money to. The question, though, comes, I guess, when the IRS goes to send out those checks, they are going to send it to the person who claims the children as their dependent on their 2019 tax return. And so if you're going back and forth and maybe your spouse claims the children as their dependent in 2019 and you claim them as your dependent in 2020, it actually belongs to the person who claims the dependent in 2020. So be aware that legally, when push comes to shove and you have to settle this in a court of law or whatever, the stimulus money goes to the one who claims the children as their dependent in 2020, because this is a tax credit for 2020. So who does claim the children? I'm going to answer this right now just in normal layman's terms. And then if you stick around, I'm going to get a little bit deeper into the actual law and code section because I like that. And you might learn something. But here we go. So who gets to claim the children as their dependent? And therefore, who gets the stimulus money? Well, that's determined by the divorce decree. Now, it says in the divorce decree usually who gets to claim the children as a dependent. Although sometimes one parent will try to be sneaky and claim the children when they're not allowed to. Or maybe they'll just forget and it's not their year. And then what happens is a little bit of a battle with the IRS, and the money might go to the wrong person, and then you got to grab your lawyers and you got to go to court. Anyway, it's eventually all settled by the divorce decree. So that's the rule. Now, the only way to change that, to change the decision that the stimulus money goes to the one who claims the children per the divorce decree, would be for the parents to amicably decide together after a discussion that maybe some of the money should go to the other parent. And so then the one who actually gets the stimulus money could hand it over to the other one. Or you can go to court and have a judge decide that even though the divorce decree says that all the tax privileges go to one parent, it's fair to give some of the stimulus money to the other parent. Now, that's usually not going to be what the judge decides just because he thinks or she thinks it's fair. You're going to have to bring some reason before the court as to why that would be fair. And we'll talk about some possible reasons here in a second. Now, if the divorce decree is no longer working for you guys, it's fair then it might be time to legally alter that agreement. It's possible that there's a change in situation that makes it so that something should be changed on the divorce decree. So for example, if the custodial parent, the one who normally has the kids for more than half the year, agreed to give the non-custodial parent full tax claiming rights on their tax return, as long as they paid alimony and child support, and as long as they were the ones making the most money. But now things have changed, and the non-custodial parent is not paying the alimony or child support, or maybe the custodial parent has got a job and they're actually making more money or whatever, or just things have changed. Well, now it might be time to go back to the court and say, hey, we think that the custodial parent should get to claim the children as their dependent at least every other year, if not all the time. But then, of course, it goes both ways. So the non-custodial parent might say, well, yeah, but then I don't want to pay any more alimony or child support or whatever. So you got to realize that you're going to have to work out a new agreement, and there's going to be a little bit of give and take. Now, if the non-custodial parent, the one who doesn't have the children, was claiming the children on their taxes as part of that divorce decree and agreement, and they had also agreed to pay child support or alimony or whatever, but they have stopped and they owe child support and alimony and they're not doing it, well, now the custodial parent would certainly have, I think, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an attorney, you should talk to your lawyer and attorney, but it seems to me that that custodial parent would have a grievance and a right to go forward and ask the judge to insist that the non-custodial parent hand over some of the stimulus money or all of it as payment toward the overdue child support. So, again, if you have a legal reason to present that this isn't fair, that they get to claim the stimulus money, they're not even paying the child support and alimony that they agreed to, and or we've got to make changes, I encourage you to talk to your attorney, reach out to them and see if there is a way to make that happen. Now, there is a way to simply claim the stimulus money from out of the hands of your ex-spouse and snatch it away from the little underhanded, sneaky way to do this on your 2020 taxes if that stimulus money has not already been mailed to or sent to your spouse. So you got to realize that once the IRS has already sent out that money, it's harder now to get it if you think you deserve that money. You're really going to have to call up your ex-spouse and say, hey, I deserve some of that. If they agree with you, fantastic. And if they don't agree with you and you really do think you deserve it and you have reasons why you can prove it, then you're going to need to talk to an attorney. So once the money's gone out, those are your only avenues of recourse. But if the money hasn't actually been sent to them, then there may be a way for you to simply claim it on your 2020 taxes out from under the nose of your ex-spouse. We'll talk about that as we now dive into the actual code section. So if you're still on this video, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of who gets to claim the children as their dependent and who then gets the stimulus money because of it. So in code section 6428, this is the Internal Revenue Code, and this is the code section passed earlier this year, allowing for recovery rebates or stimulus checks for 2020. And the code section says there shall be allowed as a tax credit $1,200 per adult, or $2,400 if you're filing jointly, plus $500 times the number of qualifying children as defined under Section 24C. We'll get back to that. Code section also outlines the limitations for your income, which are right here on the screen if you want to take a look at them. This is where you get phased out of getting the full credit. It also says that this tax credit, which normally you claim when you file your 2020 taxes, this one will be paid out in advance just as soon as the IRS can get you the money, either sent out direct deposit to your bank account or in the form of a check. And if you get that money in advance, you're not going to be able to claim it again when you file your 2020 taxes. If you don't get that money in advance, you're going to be able to claim that money on your 2020 taxes. And once again, if that money went to your spouse for the qualifying children, you're not going to be able to claim it on your 2020 taxes. We'll get back to that in a second here. So then there was an additional code section just barely passed by Congress, code section 6428, capital letter A. This is additional 2020 recovery rebates, where they said in addition to that earlier rebate, there shall be allowed as a credit $600 per adult, or $1,200 if you're filing jointly, plus $600 times the number of qualifying children under Section 24C, which we will get to in just a second. And once again, the same income limitations and the same rules about the IRS was going to send those out as advance recovery rebates, and you cannot claim them if you've already received the advance rebate. So let's take a look at this code section 24C, where we define the qualifying child. Once again, you get $600 per qualifying child in the case of the additional rebate, and $500 per qualifying child for the first rebate. Total of $1,100 per qualifying child. And a qualifying child is defined in another code section, section 152C, as long as they have not achieved 17 years old. So these are children 16 and younger. Okay? So let's take a look at code section 152C. The qualifying child means an individual who bears a relationship to the taxpayer, described in paragraph 2, a little bit later, and who has the same principal place of abode as the taxpayer for more than half of such taxable year. Those are the two main things we're going to be focusing on here, is that you get this $1,100 if they are related to you in a certain way and if the child lives with you for more than half of the year. There's 3 more rules. They have to meet age requirements, but we've already talked about that. In this case, the age requirement is they got to be under 17. And they have to have not provided for more than half of their own support, which usually isn't the case for someone 16 or younger. They don't have a job where they're providing for over half of their support and they're still living in your home. And also, they have to have not filed a joint tax return. Once again, not usually the case if they're living in your home and they're under the age of 17. They're probably not married filing jointly. So we're just going to focus on the top 2. They got to be your related child, which is they're either your child, including an adopted child, or they are your brother, sister, stepbrother, or stepsister, or a child of one of those things. So I want to point out here that you can claim a stimulus check payment, a recovery rebate of $1,100 total for a child who lived with you for more than half the year, who was your brother or your sister or your stepbrother or your stepsister or your niece or your nephew. All right? Those would be qualifying children to you if they did not provide more than half of their own support, if they lived in your house for more than half the year. You can claim them as a qualifying child. Now, there's the age requirements, which don't apply in this case. And here's a special rule we're going to focus on for just a second. If there are 2 people who say that they can claim the same qualifying child, well, then we're going to go with the one who is a parent. If one of them's a parent and one of them is not a parent, the one who's a parent gets to claim that child. Now, what if they are, neither one is a parent? The child is otherwise qualifying, lives in their home, but neither one is a parent. Then we're going to give the ability to claim that child as a dependent to the one who has the highest AGI, adjusted gross income. Okay, but what if they're both parents? What if both parents are trying to claim the same child as their dependent and get the recovery rebate check? Well, now the default is to go to the parent with whom the child resides for the longest period. So even if they didn't live more than half the year with that parent, but they lived with that parent more than they lived with the other parent, the one who had the child the longest gets to claim the credit and claim that child as a dependent. Okay, but what if they both had the child living with them for exactly the same amount of time? Now what? Well, now the rule says the parent who has the highest adjusted gross income. So that's how we decided. First, the child who, or excuse me, the person who is trying to claim the child who is their parent gets to claim it. If there's more than one parent trying, then it's the person who had the child living with them the longest. And if they both had the child living with them equally, then it's the parent who has the highest income. That's how you decide who claims the child as a dependent, and that's how you decide who gets the stimulus check. All right, but what happens if you want it to be different? You've gotten divorced, and you've decided that now you're both parents, and you want the children to live almost all the year with one parent, but you want the other parent to claim the child as a dependent, maybe because the other parent is going to pay child support, and because the other parent is going to has more money, and they need to report that on their taxes, and they want the deductions and so forth. So here's the special rule for divorced parents, notwithstanding everything else we've just said. So ignoring all that, a child, if the child receives over half of its support during the year from its parents, and they are divorced under decree, or they are separated under a written separation agreement, or simply the parents lived apart for the last 6 months of the year. So this can apply even if you and your spouse haven't lived together for the last 6 months of 2020. So now, generally you follow those rules above, but the child if that child is in the custody of one or both of the parents for more than half of the year, then the child will be treated as the dependent, the qualifying child, of the non-custodial parent, meaning the one that the child did not live with the most, only if the requirements in paragraph 2 apply. And here are the requirements. Now, it does say paragraph 3 is another option, but paragraph 3 applies only to people who were divorced over 25 years ago. They probably don't have children under 17 anymore. It's just not going to apply in this case. So we're just going to look at, in the case of divorced parents who have children living with one custodial parent, but the non-custodial parent wants to claim the children on their tax return, according to the divorce decree, well, here's how this can happen. Exception where custodial parent releases the claim. A custodial parent must sign a written declaration that they, the custodial parent, will not claim such child as a dependent. And then the non-custodial parent must attach that written declaration to their tax return. Now, if you're in this situation, you're probably familiar with Form 8332. And 8332 is the release of claim to the exemption for a child by the custodial parent. It's also how you revoke the release of the claim. So here in Part 1, you say, I agree not to claim an exemption for my child for 2020. And if you sign that, then whoever attaches this form to their tax return will get to claim the child as long as they qualify. So once again, all they have to do is attach Form 8332 from you, saying that you've given up your right to claim the child as your dependent. And as long as they have that right, as long as the child is a qualifying relative and is in the right age and lived with them and all those other things, then because they attach that signed form from you, they now can claim the child as their dependent, and they will get the stimulus check for if they attach this form for 2020. They will have the right, let's put it this way, they will have the right to claim that recovery rebate credit, even if they didn't get the stimulus check. Let's go back to Form 8332. Under Section 2, you can sign away your right to claim your dependent child for more than 1 year. In Part 2 here, you can say, I will not claim the exemption for my child for 2020 or 2019, for 2021, and so forth. And you can write down all the years you're not going to claim them. But then what if you change your mind? That's what Part 3 is for. Part 3 says, I revoke the release of claim to an exemption for my child for 2020. So earlier in this video, I said that there might be a way for you to sneakily snatch that recovery rebate credit, the COVID-19 refund rebate check, from your ex-spouse if they haven't already received it. And that will be if you file a Form 8332 with your 2020 tax return this spring, where you have signed Part 3 and you revoke the right for your ex-spouse or for anybody, you revoke the release of claim to that exemption. Basically, you're saying, no, I'm no longer releasing the claim on my children. I am going to claim my children as my dependent because they live with me. Once again, remember, the default rules are that if you are their parent and the child lives with you for more than half of the year, then you're going to get to claim that child as your dependent, and nobody else can unless you release that right using this Form 8332. So you're able to revoke that right. Now, I want to be really careful here, and you need to talk to your lawyer about this. What I'm basically saying is you can do this, even without talking to your spouse, even without talking to your lawyer. You can simply revoke the right for your ex-spouse to claim that child if the children have lived with you for more than half the year. And then, based on you saying that the children are your dependent, and based on you claiming them as your dependent on your 2020 tax return, you now have the right to claim the economic stimulus payment, the recovery rebate credits, the $1,100 per child. That money, the IRS will determine goes to you, but that's the IRS. Because now, what if you made an agreement in your divorce decree before a judge that you promised your ex-spouse would get to claim the children as their dependent? And now you've gone against the divorce decree and claimed the child as your dependent. Well, now your ex-spouse has, I assume, because I'm not an attorney, full legal right to take you back to court and say, you violated the divorce decree. You promised you would let your ex-spouse claim them as a dependent, and now you've gone against that. You've revoked that right unilaterally without talking to a judge, and they could sue you for that and get the money back. So I'm just saying There are ways. Yes, you do have ways to get the stimulus payment if you believe that the money should go to you because you have full custody of the children. But I highly recommend that you talk to your attorney and also talk to your accountant, your CPA, and discuss what will happen if you try to claim that money. And once again, if the money has already gone to your ex-spouse, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get it. Yes, you can file a tax return in 2020 claiming your children as your dependent, and you can file that tax return claiming the economic recovery rebate credit, but the IRS is going to look at it and say, we already sent this money out to your ex-spouse, and so they will not send it to you. And you won't get the money if it's already gone to your spouse. You're going to have to then take your ex-spouse to court again and say that money should have come to me. Anyway, absolutely, there are methods for you to get the money if it belongs to you, and you should definitely talk to an attorney and to your CPA. Thanks so much for watching. Please go ahead and like and subscribe. Like this video, pass it on to those who you think might need this information if they are divorced parents and they're trying to get their stimulus money. And also subscribe to the channel so you can get more videos about taxes, about travel and adventure, and about other financial advice so that you can have more freedom and more wealth and adventure in your own life. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments below. What do you think about who should be able to claim the economic stimulus payment if they're divorced? Put it in the comments. If you have any questions that I can do another video on, let me know. Have a great day.